It's time for our weekly energy update with Dan McTeague, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy.
Thank you very much for that, Julie. Final week of February, a lot of expectations in terms of energy prices, but let's start dealing with the fact that there has been a huge surge in gas prices on the Pacific coast, particularly the lower mainland and Vancouver Island. So Vancouver itself, Victoria, have all seen gas prices just in the past few days spike by as much as 18 cents a liter over the span of 3 days. And that really is a reflection of what should have happened a couple of weeks ago. We're dealing with an odd market, a market that doesn't take into account fundamental supply and demand. Sometimes I have to think that AI is actually running these trades, but we know that with the only refinery in Vancouver, the Parkland refinery, down for the past 3 weeks and not likely to reopen for the next couple of weeks, there has been a bit of a hit to supply. And that doesn't just mean what's happening in Washington State, the Pacific Northwest, where there are 4 refineries. It also means, of course, that Vancouver would have to handle, or take on the burden of these higher prices. So we've seen prices shoot up there to $1.90. We might get a bit of a break come Sunday, maybe down a penny, but by Wednesday and Thursday, we could very well see these prices resume their upward trek, such that we could be at $2 a liter, something we haven't seen since the beginning of October in the lower mainland. For the rest of British Columbia, smooth sailing, quiet as it goes. Kelowna, Kamloops, Prince George, not seeing much in the way of a change in terms of outlook. And of course, if I go to Alberta, almost the same thing, ranging between lows of $1.23, $1.24 in Edmonton, and to highs in the same town of as much as $1.32. If I go to Calgary, always 2 to 3 cents more expensive. That's the wholesale price increase or difference between the two towns. And for that reason, we're still seeing gasoline trailing in about the $1.30 range on average. Same for Saskatchewan. Nothing really to write home about. Always holding at $1.39 for Regina, Saskatoon. Winnipeg, $1.25. But Ontario's has seen quite a bit of turbulence in the past week. $1.50 up to $1.52, now down to $1.48, but pushing back towards $1.49. So it looks like the outlook for the week is pretty much going to be static as we finish this leap year on Thursday. I'm not expecting much in the way of any big changes in Ontario. And that would also mean for Quebec, which is also 12 cents a liter more expensive, mostly because of the tax. That makes up the big difference between the two provinces. And Atlantic Canada, which last week saw a pretty big surge in prices, saw a bit of a decrease this week, a penny or so on gasoline, but almost a 5-cent decrease on diesel. Look for prices to remain stable over the week. I suspect that we might be looking up or down a penny's difference for gasoline in Atlantic Canada, and maybe about a 2-cent drop in terms of diesel. Now, all this is on the heels of the fact that refineries have, especially in the United States, been going through what's called maintenance. That's usually a 2-week period where they shut down for a while, clean out those facilities, and then get them ready to introduce them to summer spec gasoline. Yes, that's a thing. We're going to start to see refineries cranking out very different summer blends of gasoline with what's called lower RVP, basically meaning less volatility. And of course, they're swapping out things like butane in favor of alkylates. That will ultimately make the price of gasoline more expensive, but that doesn't happen in Canada really until the second week of April. So we're about a full month away from that date, a month and a half. But in a month, almost a month and a week, we'll be talking about the overall increase of 4 cents a liter, which is yet an increase in the carbon tax schedule at the federal government as we go to $80 a ton from $65 a ton. That will put gasoline with average GST prices at about 18 cents and about 22 to 23 cents for diesel. It comes to the point of saying, as the government increases these taxes strictly to give some of that back, but most of it doesn't go back to Canadians, it is undoubtedly inflationary because it impacts the cost of anything. And I know a lot of economists have tried to dance around this and sugarcoat what is obviously an inflationary hit. The fact that it makes its way through the economy, the fact that it raises the cost of living unnecessarily, and that the Bank of Canada is always ready to respond by higher inflationary pressures, it really has to force, I think, politicians to wake up and smell the coffee. these carbon taxes are highly inflationary when they represent, as of April 1st, about 15% of the total cost of energy. They're unnecessary and they ought to be scrapped along with net zero. That's it for this week, though, Julie, and I will have more to talk about as we head into the first week of March. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be expensive.
Thanks for that, Dan. We'll have our market update when we return, so stay with us.